Next, we're going to take a look at how we can set up our page numbers for our book. Since we are working towards a digital representation of our book where we will be flipping pages, just like we would if we had a hard copy book in our hand, it's important to take a moment to think about what that is going to do to our page numbers. So when we're working in Word, which is a little bit different than those of you who have experience in design, page one is page one, right? When you start to think about a physical experience flipping through a book, page one is a cover, and then you flip it open, right? And you suddenly have two pages side by side. Now we can't look at that view in Word, so we need to use our imaginations and get a piece of scrap paper, or you can build a table like I've done here to plan out where we will need to include blank pages. For example, on the inside of the cover, if we want to have material specifically appear on the right-hand side of the page. So if you imagine this book, here's my cover, I'm gonna flip it open. Oops, I didn't mean to do that, flip it open. I'll have a blank page and then I'll see the title page. And I'll flip that open and maybe I'll see that epigraph I have planned for my book by Sarah Starnes. I'll flip the epigraph and then I want the table of contents to appear right there on the right-hand side of the book that I'm looking at digitally, or maybe the book I'm holding in my hand. And my table of contents is 2 pages long. So when I flip the page, I'll see my table of contents, and then I'd like my first poem to start right next to it on that right-hand side of the page. That's when I'd really like to start counting my page numbers and have that be page one of my book. I don't want to give the cover page one status. As I start to go through, I might have a certain number of poems back and forth, and then if I'm going to be putting in a section break, you might be doing this, you might want to have a blank page and then a section break, like section 2, section 3, etc., starting on that right-hand side of the page. So as we're flipping through, it makes a little bit more sense to our readers visually because that's what they're used to. So I'm going to set this aside for a moment and talk about how can we set up our page numbers in Word so that we can follow that type of flipping motion and plan for that. Right, so I have my poems spaced out. I put in my page breaks. So the things that start with titles are starting at the top of a page. And so to begin, and this can be a complicating, frustrated process. Let's just get that out of the way. You might have to go through and do this a couple of times. So you could leave this towards the end of your bookmaking process, absolutely, and have this be one of the last things. And definitely get in touch if you get a little bit frustrated. But I'm going to come up to Insert, Page Number. I'm going to be working a lot out of this toolbar. And I come to Page Number, and I want to tell the computer where I would like the page number on the page. So if you can see right now, the default is bottom right. And so my page number will appear right there. Personally, I like that when I'm flipping books. I enjoy seeing the page number down at the bottom of the page because when I'm coming to books of creative writing, poetry, etc., I'm not paying as much attention to the page numbers. Maybe I would a textbook where I need to find pages in the book frequently to know what to read. That might be, right, a choice where you put the page number up at the top. So really this is going to be your personal preference. The only wrong thing you could do is not include any page numbers for your readers for this particular assignment. So go with what you prefer as a reader, and then if you get feedback from your peer reviewers as they're looking at your book, you could take that into consideration if they have any trouble following what you have decided to set up for them as readers. For right now, I'm going to leave it to say show number on first page. That's not any trouble for us. Click on OK. And as I start to scroll down, you'll notice here I have my page number automatically appearing for me, just like regular when we're setting up our documents for MLA format for our essays. I don't know about you, right? But in my plan, I don't want to see page numbers on these pages, right? So one thing I can do in Word is tell the computer that there is a difference between sections of my document. I've already said and put in those invisible lines that there are differences between elements, right? Between this poem and this poem, there needs to be the start of a new page. I can also tell Word that between these number of pages and these number of pages, there is a different, and I'm going to set different rules for those different spaces. So I have my table of contents right here ending, and I have the very first poem. What I'm going to do is hit delete, right, to take away that page break I made. And I'm going to put in a section break instead. You will find out all of the section break information up here. If you see my mouse doing a crazy dance next to layout, click on layout. I'm going to come here to breaks. And what I want is a page break, right? So next page is going to start a whole new section of my book. Click on that. And you'll notice that poem moved down just like it did when I showed you how to insert a page break. The difference is that invisible line says this part of the document and this part of the document are fundamentally different places. And this is why it is important. If I come up here, actually I'll come down here first. You notice my poem is starting on page 1. So I have 2 page 1s on my document right now because that second section is currently following the rules I set up for the first section. It's just starting over from scratch. So the first thing that I'm going to want to do is come down to my second section and turn off that communication so that I can start to do different things. I'm going to come by my 1, and this is my first poem, and double click on it. And you'll notice that right here it says footer, section 2. So I'm in the second section of my document. And up here it says link to previous. So this is that communication button where it says keep doing what we did before. I don't want it to keep doing what I did before because eventually I'm going to go back and I'm going to delete all the pages, page numbers, because I don't want page numbers appearing on my epigraph or my cover page, etc. So I'm going to unlink to previous, right? So that's going to turn it off. Now it just says footer section 2. Right? And I'm going to click on different odd and even pages because when I think about my book flipping, right, rather than having my page number appear on the margin and on the outside, what I really want to have happen is my page number appearing on the left and my other page number appearing on the right, and then I have that digital spine of my book down the middle. So this is the moment where I'm going to be setting that up. If I come down here, right, I just want to double check and make sure that my footer also says that it's turned off, and I want to say different odd and even pages, right? And then when I do that, it's going to let me make some other choices. Right here, I want it on the outside. Right? The outside is going to make sure that it appears over here when it's an even page, and it's going to make sure it's on the exterior when it's on the right. So I want it to be on the outside. Okay. Whoops. I did it for the wrong document. Page number, outside. Okay. There we go. When I'm done working in this area, I'm just going to double click back on my text. And so now I see all of my page 1 is going to be on the right, page 2 is going to be on the left, whoa, 3 on the right, 4 on the left, and it will continue down until I make a new section. So those of you who are planning to put in section breaks, here between page 3 and that blank page, I'm going to go in and put in a section break, and then that's going to let me start over again. I'm hitting save. Now up here, I don't want these page numbers, so I can come up, double click, right, and I can highlight my page number, click on delete. Now remember, they were different odd and even pages, so I need to do it for odds and evens. Highlight that, delete, double click back on my margin. Here we go. Fingers crossed, nothing up there. Bam, page 1 starts with my first poem, and that is beautiful. All right, whew, gonna hit save once more. The other thing that you can do while you're in this phase is think about whether or not you want to have header or footer information, something that runs along the bottom or the top of the page. If you do, you can just double click. And so, for example, sometimes people want to include the name of the book, right? So I can move over. I can pull over the title of my book and have that appear just on page 1, right? Or I can have it appear, maybe my last name on page 2. Right. For me, since this is a very small book, and I don't have different chapters, I don't know why this is going word by word by word. I don't know, for me personally, if I were having maybe sections that had different names or etc., that might be helpful to my reader to guide them through. If we're doing a smaller book that's only 16 to 24 poems, you might feel that it's very clear to readers where they're at, versus maybe you're really wanting to make a distinction between sections and you're titling those sections and that's really meaningful to your theme, then you might want to include that in there. Or maybe if you're using creating a full-length collection. All right, so that's how you insert page numbers and section breaks so that you can have different types of numbers on different sections, and some thoughts on header and footer. In the next video, we will talk a little bit about selecting fonts for your book.